names. Okay, hello students. Today we're going to be reading I Am Ruby Bridges by Ruby Bridges and illustrated by Nicholas Smith. And it says up here, how one 6-year-old girl's march to school changed the world. So before we start reading this, I want you to put yourself into the mindset of this little girl. And we're going to learn a little bit about her life and what it was like. And as we learn more about her life, I want you to be thinking about how she might be feeling and what thoughts might be going through her head. So here's the front picture. It's Ruby, and she's got lots of some ruby diamonds, just like her name, and some crowns and stars and a book. So those must be things that are important to her. Here she's drawn a picture as a child of a kid standing underneath a bridge, and above the bridge is the ruby jewel. And then she's written her name and given us a sort of dictionary definition of what she feels her name means. Ruby. Ruby, and it's pronounced ruby. A jewel, a precious stone that is red. Bridges, plural of a bridge. A structure carrying a pathway or roadway over an obstacle, such as a river, or a time, place, or means of connection or transition. And then we see the cover. I am Ruby Bridges. When I grow up, my work will be precious. I will be a bridge. I will bridge the gap between black and white, and hopefully between all people. I suppose some things in life are just meant to be. And if we look here, we see hands that are Ruby's hands. She's holding them down here. And as we can see, Ruby's skin is a lot darker, and over here there are other people who are also black. And then on this side, there are kids and family people who are white, and their skin is a lot lighter. And during this time, people who had black skin were kind of shut out from everybody who had white skin because they were thought to be different. So Ruby thinks that because of what she does as a young black girl, she's thinking that she can be the bridge between these people. By doing what she does, she creates a bridge for white people and black people. And she knows that she can do that because of the skin color she has. Because at the time, white people weren't going to reach out to the black people because of what they were thinking about them. So let's learn more about that. 1960. Before I started school, I wasn't thinking about who I would be when I grew up. I was thinking about how much I didn't even like my name. I thought Ruby was a name for a little old ladies. It was much too old for someone my age. After all, I was only just turning 6. So Ruby is younger than you guys are, because you guys are 4th graders. So you guys are 9, 10 years old. Ruby was only 6, so she would have been going into 1st grade or kindergarten. I've told my grandmother chose this name, Ruby, for me. Well, that explains it. No wonder it's such an ancient name. But I so loved my grandmother. I thought I'll just have to live with it and try to grow into it. Surely I didn't want to hurt her feelings. So there, I was almost 6, born in 1954. I'm told that was a very important year because of the landmark case, Brown versus Board of Education. So Brown versus Board of Education happened right at this time, and it says court bans segregation in public schools. So if you remember, we've learned about how segregation is whenever black people and white people were not allowed to be together. So we've seen pictures in our history lessons of black people having to go to bathrooms and white people having to use a different bathroom. And this is because at the time, the white people had this thought that because of the dark skin color that black people had, they couldn't be as smart as the white people. They couldn't be as nice. They just weren't as good. And we know now that that's not true. But because they thought this way, they didn't do a lot of nice things. So Ruby says that was when the court banned segregation in schools, just like we read up there. But all I knew then was my old name was Ruby Bridges. Oh boy, what's next? What a way to start school. So she hasn't started school yet, and this happens, and all of a sudden schools have to let both black and white students in. And so she's never experienced segregated schools, just like you guys haven't experienced them. But she is going to be one of the first students to go into schools that are both white and black students. Oh wow, how bad could it be? I thought, it's not like I'll be the first Ruby in the world, just the youngest one. So after school I go. It is a regular school with lots of other kids to play with. I make new best friends. Even my teacher is nice, and it's not hard at all. Surprisingly, it's easier than I thought it would be. I get lots of gold stars every day. Life couldn't be better. So here we see all the other students in Ruby's school are black, and her teacher is too. And I don't see any white students around, but according to Ruby, that seems normal. Then, just as things are going really well for me, surprise, I find that my parents have decided I am switching schools to a better school, they say, with better opportunities. But first, I must take a test to get in. And here are Ruby's parents sitting with some other men looking at W. France Elementary School. And it looks like it's on a flyer. Opportunities. She's holding her Ruby. What are opportunities anyway, I thought, and why do I need them, especially if a test comes with them? So Ruby's so young, she doesn't even know what that word means. It sounds new to her, and she's not sure why she would want them or what it means. But then I thought, I'm already getting gold stars, so how hard can it be? Besides, there's no turning back now, and it's what my parents want for me. And so we see the opportunities, the red jewel, her parents are handing them to her. And it looks like they're starting to tell her what opportunities might be. There's a microphone, maybe she'll be a singer. A book, maybe she'll be an author. There's cameras, a graduation cap, a baseball and a baseball and a baseball bat. There's a paintbrush and a stethoscope, which is what doctors wear, and even the thing that the lawyers use. So she could have any of these jobs, and she's learning that's what it means to have opportunities. She takes the test, and guess what? Another gold star. I passed the test. Can you believe it? How lucky can an almost 6-year-old with an old name like Ruby be? I was about to find out because my mom said I would be starting a brand new school the next morning, and I had better behave. So people were surprised that Ruby was able to pass this test because remember, she's only almost 6 years old, and she's also black, and they think that students who have dark skin can't learn things or know things, and she passes this test and shows them I'm young and I'm black, but I do know things. So that was very shocking to them. First day. No more walking to school with my best friends. There are 4 very tall men at the door to drive me to school, and they're white men. So if we look before in this book, she's not met any people who are white because they are being segregated, which means they don't get to be near each other. So all of the students in her school, her family members are white, of course. All the people rioting are black. All the students in her school are black. The people who talk to her parents about this test are black. And then she goes to go to school, and white men come up and try to take her. And so this could be scary because this is not something she's familiar with. Who in the world are they? And who told them I needed a ride to school anyway? Federal marshals, they tell me. sent by the President of the United States. So we know that we don't know federal marshals maybe, but we know that if the U.S. President sent these people, they must be important. And federal means the country, so the president of the country is sending them, and marshals just means they're people who work for the country, and they're there to keep her safe. Federal marshals sent just for me? Wow. That must have been a very special test that I passed, because they said I'm the first. The first what, I thought? I didn't find out what being the first really meant until the day I arrived at this new school. And she looks so happy. She's getting to ride in this fun car, and these people came just for her. She's probably feels special. Those 4 very tall white men, they escort me into the building past lots of screaming white people who line the streets outside the school. It really looks like Mardi Gras to me, but they aren't throwing any beads. What's Mardi Gras without beads? So here we can assume that these white people are angry because they're screaming at her. And they don't have very happy faces. They're angry that Ruby's getting to go to school with the other white students. Once I get inside, I meet the new principal, and she is white too. I wasn't taken to my classroom until the next day. It looks like Ruby has stuck her hand out to shake her hand, and the principal just frowns at her. A lot of the time people didn't want to touch black people because they thought that they were dirty because their skin is darker. But now we know that their skin is darker because of melanin in their skin, which is just a science term for something that makes up your skin. And the melanin in their skin, they have a lot more, so it makes them a lot darker. But this woman thinks that Ruby's dirty because her hand is darker, and so she doesn't want to shake it. Second day. When I arrive at my classroom, my new teacher opens the door and greets me. "Hi, I'm Mrs. Henry, your teacher. Come in and take a seat," she says. And aren't I surprised, because she is also white. I've never had a white teacher before. And the biggest surprise of all, I'm the only kid in the class. I didn't see any other students at all. Not one. That test must have been a lot harder than I thought. So, this teacher seems very happy to see Ruby, but she also seems to be hiding behind the door. So maybe she's a little scared because this is very new for everyone. They've never had a black student in a white school before. And so Ruby thinks that the test was just really hard, and that's why no one else got it. She doesn't know yet. Why am I the only kid in my class? Not to mention the only kid in my whole school. And why don't I see anyone who looks like me? And then that's when it hits me. I'm not just the only kid. I'm the only black person here. I thought maybe I am the first. The first black kid in this school. So that's what they meant about me being the first. And we see all of these white students and all of their pictures, and then here in this class photo we see Ruby puts her picture up there. Finally it all makes sense. Me, 6-year-old Ruby, the first black kid to go to this school, William France Elementary, a white school. And again we see all these angry people, and now we know that the federal marshals were there to help her be safe from these angry people. And we also can see, if we look at young Ruby, her teacher is not afraid anymore. She's holding Ruby's hand. So it seems that her teacher may have changed her mind about how she felt. When I asked my mom, she said yes, it was an all-white school until the laws changed when Brown versus Board of Education won their case in the Supreme Court. Now all black kids can go to any school they like along with white kids. I, Ruby, being the first, helped to make that possible. So she knows that she was the first black student in the school, and because she was black in a school of white students, she knows that she's helping to let more black kids come into her school, and helping to let more white kids get to know black kids, because before they didn't get to know each other. And that's a good thing for black kids and for white kids too, for all kids once they finally get here. She's got some other kids holding up second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and we can see friends behind who are white, and they're also happy because it's not just helping the black kids, it's also helping the white kids. I just want to know one thing. When are they coming? Because I know they are just like me. Who cares what color we are? I'm just happy Brown versus Board of Education made it right. School is just school and kids are just kids. I'm sure they'll all show up soon enough. I can't wait. So she knows that just because she's got a different skin color doesn't mean that she can only learn so much or she can learn less, just like the white people think. She can learn just as much as these other kids, and she knows that all the other kids can learn just as much as her. And so she wants them all to be in the same class together. I guess being 6 with an old name like Ruby isn't so bad after all. I suppose some things in life are meant to be. I am Ruby Bridges the first. And there's the bridge behind her, and it says Ruby. And we can see all of the people dancing and celebrating on the bridge. And then back here it gives us a glossary of our terms if you want to look at this later, and an author's note, which is Ruby Bridges, and an illustrator's note. And then back here is another drawing. It says, I am special. I can be president and vice president. I am precious. I have opportunities. I am Ruby the first. And here are all kinds of opportunities and drawings that all lead to her because she made those things possible. So that is the end of our book. And so our activity today, I've already started it for us, but today we're going to be talking about correcting some of the thoughts that we saw in this book, because we read some things that weren't really right and some things that weren't kind, and so we're going to talk about this together as a group, and we are going to notice what we saw in the book and correct it. So this says building racial literacy. So racial literacy is a big word for 4th graders, but I know that we can say it together, so let's all say it together. Racial literacy. So we know that race is usually related to the color of our skin. So I am white, but Ruby had darker skin, and so a lot of people would say she is black. And that's why it was possible that she was able to connect other black kids to the school. And so racial has to do with race. And literacy, we've learned whenever we talk about reading and writing, we talk about literacy. Literacy is being able to know about something. So if you are racially literate, it means that you know a lot about race and how interactions with race happen. And so when we talk about racial literacy, we're going to be able to know how to interact with race and thoughts and actions that happen because of race in a positive way. So, and then it says with our book, I am Ruby Bridges, and I used red because Ruby used a lot of red in her book. So I went ahead and started. I said thoughts and actions presented in the book. Black students cannot learn the things white students can. So we talked about how before Brown versus Board of Education, they had the black students in one school and the white students in another school, and they weren't allowed to learn together. And so we talked about how that was because the white people thought that black people weren't able to know the same things that white people did, learn the same things, or be as smart. And so we learned that black students can be just as smart or even smarter than the white students, just as much as anyone else can. And they learned that in the book too, whenever they met Ruby, who passed this test and was so smart, and they let her into the school. They were so shocked that someone so young and someone who was black could be as smart as everyone else. So what's some other things that we heard and noticed in the book? Okay. I want you to turn to your partner and talk about some things. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of us mention the moment in the book whenever the principal would not shake Ruby's hand. So I'm going to turn to that page and we're going to talk some more about it. So when Ruby first comes to the school, she puts her hand out to shake the principal's hand, but we see that the principal's frowning and has her hands hidden behind her back. And if you remember when I read this, we kind of talked about how a lot of people thought or were told that black people were dirty because their skin was darker, but we know that that's not true. So the thought would be that she's thinking black students are dirty, I can't shake their hands, but we know that the only reason their skin is darker is because they have more melanin. So in this chart, I would write the thought and action we saw was that the principal thinks black students are dirty because their skin is darker. But we would go over here and we'd correct it and say this black student's skin is darker because they have more melanin. So that's how we could correct that. And we could say on top of that, they're just as clean as any other student is. Some kids forget to wash their hands and sometimes their hands might be dirty. We know sometimes kids carry a lot of germs, but students can also wash their hands and be clean. So black students are capable of that just as much as any other student. Okay, let's think of some other racial or some thoughts and actions we saw. And I heard some of you guys talking about how one action was Ruby going to school and they were all black kids. And so that action would be the segregation, that black kids had to go to this school and white kids had to go to this school and separating everybody. And so that action is that they said black students and white students can't go to school together. But we could go over here and correct that and say they can go to school together. And we learned from Ruby that it's better for everyone that way. So let's see where she put that picture of everyone being so happy. It's better for all kids that way. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed our story and I hope you enjoyed our anchor chart activity. We're going to put this into test more frequently in our classroom. We're not going to let this go, and we'll keep bringing this up because I know this is a heavy topic and we need to talk about it. And so don't stick it out of your mind. Keep it up there and we'll come back to it another time. Okay? Thank you.